Hello, church family, and today we're going to be in 2 Kings chapter 5, verses 1 through 14. I love this passage. This passage just tells us, it shows us so much. It shows us the importance of character. It shows us the importance of grace and obedience. And it's probably a story, if you grew up in church, probably a story that you heard, and something that we hear as kids. And it's the story of Naaman. And I just think it's a wonderful story. I mean, the whole Bible's great, but this story, I think it's really relatable. I think a lot of us, if you're not going through this now, you'll be in this situation that Naaman's in as well. Whether it's something on a smaller scale or a bigger scale, I find this situation, these circumstances that Naaman is in, is very relatable. And so let's jump in. Verse 1, it says, Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great man, and with his master, he was in high favor. Because of him, the Lord had given victory to Syria. He was a mighty man of valor, but he was a leper. There's a lot of great things said about Naaman right there in that passage. He's not an Israelite or anything like that, but it tells us that he was a pretty wonderful guy. Like he was an awesome commander. He was well respected. His esteem was high. He was in favor with his master. There's a lot of great things said about Naaman here, and I think the most important part is that in his efforts, in his attempts as being a commander, it says that the Lord gave him victory. The Lord provided these victories for him. So even the Lord is on his side. It's a great thing when the Bible says, "Hey, you're a great man." You're a man of valor. This is pretty awesome for Naaman here. There's a lot of good things said about him, but that last little bit, right? That last little bit is a big one, right? And maybe you feel like that. There might be something in your life that really throws off the rest of it. But for Naaman, that is absolutely true. It says that last little bit, but he was a leper. And if that goes untreated, if that does not get fixed, which they don't have modern medicine, a miracle's gonna have to happen. Something's gonna have to take place. There was no cure for this back then, right? Something's got to happen. But if nothing happens, if this goes left untreated, if nothing intervenes, he's going to become disfigured. He's not going to be this guy. He's not going to be a commander anymore. He's not going to be that guy. This is going to ruin his life. This is going to ruin the situation. Everything that's going good for him, if this goes left unfixed, his life is going to be in turmoil. Naaman's going to have a tough situation. So in verse 2, it says in verse 2, it says, and now the Syrians on one of their raids had carried off this little girl from the land of Israel. And she worked in the service of Naaman's wife. And she said to her mistress, would that my Lord were with the prophet who is in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy. So God's starting to intervene here. And he starts to intervene with this little girl. I love that. This little servant girl, God decides in this moment to make Naaman's family and Naaman's life intersect with this Israelite girl. And we see in this that she has faith. She knows the Lord. She has a great deal of respect for what the Lord and what his people can do when they're on his side. She says that there's this prophet in Samaria. He can do something about Naaman's leprosy. And so we see this great faith, this at least this acknowledgement that this is not the end for Naaman. There is hope out there. Let me tell you about it. Let me tell you where to go. And so Naaman goes and gets permission to travel to Israel. We know that he takes a gift and a letter from the king of Syria, and he brings it to this next individual that we get introduced to, the king of Israel. And you would think, oh, this is going to be great. He's going to side. But the king of Israel, we get this little servant girl, and then we get the king of Israel. And the little servant girl shows way more faith than this king of Israel. And so it says in verse 6, it says, he brought the letter to the king of Israel, which read, when this letter reaches you, know that I have sent my servant Naaman, I have sent to you my Naaman, my servant, that you may cure him of his leprosy. And when the king of Israel read this letter, he tore his clothes and said, am I God to kill and to make alive, that this man sends word to cure a man of his leprosy? Only consider and see how he is seeking a quarrel with me. king of Israel, Jeroboam, not from a great stock or anything like that. He's a godless, he is not a good king in northern Israel. He's just not. He's not good. He's just terrible. And we see in his reaction to Naaman's request, he tears his clothes. He says, am I God? I can't do nothing about this situation. Leprosy, cure you of leprosy? No one can do that. And so so the king of Israel literally just thinks that something's up. This guy wants to pick a fight with us. Like we're next on his list. And if he does not show us mercy or anything, we're done for, right? Like Naaman's going to destroy us. Like this is not good. That's what he thinks. And so I think it's so funny that we see this faith of this little servant girl that promotes hope in Naaman's life, where he's willing to travel from his homeland and go seek help, to then meeting the king of Israel. And this is what Naaman sees as the king of Israel. Israel's not in the greatest of places right now. They're definitely not being led by a great king at all. But Elisha hears about this, and Elisha sends for Naaman. He's like, what's going on? I can help. Send him to me. And in verse 9, we see this. So Naaman came with his horses and chariots and stood at the door of Elisha's house. And Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh will be restored, and you shall be clean. But Naaman was angry and went away, saying, behold, I thought that he would surely come out to me and stand and call upon his Lord and wave his hand over the place and cure the leper. Naaman is not happy. He's angry. And the Bible tells us, he says, it not only here it says that he's angry, but it also says that he went away in a rage. Like Naaman is furious about this report. He's traveled all this way and then gets told this request to go dip himself in the Jordan River 7 times. This makes no sense to him. He's came all this way. And better yet, Naaman's like, the man, Elisha can't even come to the door and talk to me about this? What's going on here? I thought Elisha would walk up to the door, walk outside, declare his faith to the Lord, wave his little hand around me, and I'd be cured. That makes sense to me. Why can't we just do that? But no, Elisha doesn't come and meet him at the door, and he doesn't do what would make sense to Naaman. And Naaman, he's just furious. He's unhappy. He's so in a fit. And I've been here, and you've probably been here too. It doesn't make sense to him. He's like, this water in Israel, the Jordan River, like, ugh. Like, why would I go to any body of water in Israel when in Damascus there's glorious rivers, the most beautiful places you've ever seen? Like, why would I go there? None of this makes sense to him. And we see, Naaman's not happy. He's not happy about this request, this request to be obedient in this moment. He's just not. But we see some of these servants, whether they came from a place of like, well, Naaman, we've traveled all this way. At least do what the man says. Maybe they came from that place, or maybe they just really do care for Naaman. Maybe Naaman, like the Bible says, is just an upstanding man, and everybody just wants to see something happen in Naaman's life, wants to see him healed, wants to see him be able to be who he's been. And so we see in verse 13, it says, but the servants came near and said to him, my father, it is a great word that the prophet has spoken to you. Will you not do it? He has actually said to you, wash and be clean. So he went down and dipped himself 7 times in the Jordan, according to the word of the man, or the word of the man of God. And his flesh was restored of like a little child, and he was clean. So Naaman, even though he butts up against the request, he ends up listening to those around him. He ends up listening to his servants and does what Elisha has asked him to do. And he was cured and he was cleaned. His leprosy was gone. It was gone from him. Such a great story of just grace and obedience. And I really do think the story just really speaks for itself. I mean, even when things don't make sense to you, we need to obey. Even when a request seems audacious or it just doesn't seem right to you, if it's coming from the Lord, you need to obey. Grace and obedience, they're two things that work together. And it's just something that we experience in this life. Grace and grace and obedience just at work in our lives. And the Lord uses both. And some people try to separate them and try to make them two different things, but they're not, right? Obedience is not required for grace. Jesus can do whatever, whenever, however He wants to apply His mercy and grace upon someone. He can choose to do that. But there is this other side. If a request is being made, if you have one more day to live and obedience is asked of you, it's request of you, which in the Christian lifestyle, it has been request of you. Obedience has been a command given to you. It's for your benefit. Even if it doesn't make sense to you, even if the request just seems out there and it doesn't make sense in this time or whatever, it's for your benefit. The Lord is leading you that way so that He can bless you. The Lord is leading you that way so that He can bring more understanding to you, for you, and deepen that relationship with you. Grace and obedience work together all the time in our life. And the Lord is at work in our lives in that way all the time. Every single day of our lives. And so I encourage you. Grace is important. Lean on it. Allow God to receive that grace and that mercy from Him. But also respond with obedience. Follow Him when He's asked you and called you to do something. It could be hard. It could be really hard. It could ask a whole bunch of you, from you, right? It could ask a whole lot from you. But God's looking out for you. He's your friend. He's your Father. And He cares for you. So do what He is required, what He is asking of you. And so, hey, thank you, church family. Thank you so much for tuning into these videos. We love you. And we'll see you soon. All right, bye.